Hello and welcome to Press TV News Analysis. I'm Kabit Halfway. In this news analysis, we'll be looking at the mounting pressure exerted on Israel in the wake of its deadly attack on the Gaza Aid Flotilla, which has drawn international condemnation with a special focus on U.S.'s relation with what they have called the right arm in the Middle East. First, the results of the autopsy done on the bodies of the 9 Turkish men on board the Mavi Marmara. Well, they were telling. They were shot a total of 30 times, with 5 killed by gunshot wounds to the head. This information about the manner and intensity of the killings undermines Israel's insistence that its soldiers opened fire only in self-defense. Yet Israel is reluctant for an international investigation to take place, even though one of the activists murdered was an American citizen shot at close range with 4 bullets in his head and 1 in his chest. The official response by the U.S. for Israel to conduct a prompt but impartial investigation, perhaps something similar to the Winograd report. Well, the murder of American Rachel Corrie, an American activist who was crushed to death by Israeli forces in 2003, and more recently an American activist who lost her eye from a tear gas canister shot in the face by Israeli forces in the occupied territories of Palestine, other examples in which the U.S. has not held Israel accountable. But for how long can the U.S. sustain its relationship with Israel in this manner? Last week, the United States backed the Security Council's statement on Israel's attack on an aid flotilla that tried to break Israel's blockade of the Gaza Strip. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, who was ridiculed a few months ago while in Israel when Israel announced construction of more housing units, has said the siege of Gaza is not sustainable. Well, these are just some of the examples of a possible Israel-U.S. rift. Yet this attack has cornered the United States in a defensive diplomatic position to contain the regional and international fallout, making it hard for U.S. officials to, quote, legitimize Israel's blunder. Well, to discuss this more, our guests include former CIA analyst Ray McGovern, who joins us from Washington, Vice Chairman of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Kamel Hawash, who joins us from London, and member of the Gaza Freedom March, Max Ayal, joins us from Gaza. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us on this special news analysis. First, let me go to Gaza and ask Max Ayal, according to the autopsy results, 8 Turkish nationals, 1 American man on board the Mavi Marmara were shot a total of 30 times by the Israeli army. What do you make of the autopsy results?
I think it's unsurprising. I think when you send in heavily armed commandos to attack somebody, to attack people on their own ship, they're obviously going to defend themselves. And when those heavily armed commandos encounter people resisting their actions, they're going to do what they know how to do, what they're trained to do, what the Israeli army has proven to be very good at over the last 50 or 60 years, which is kill people. They don't accept the legitimacy of any forms of resistance, and they furthermore do not think that people have any right to self-defense. Analyst Edward Herman has referred to Israel as having what he calls aggression rights as one of the U.S.'s client states. The U.S. also has aggression rights. When you have aggression rights, your target does not have the right to self-defense. So it's very unsurprising that these were trained killers. They were sent in to carry out an operation, and when they encountered resistance, what they did was they killed.
Let's get a reaction on some statements that have come out. I'm going to zoom in on the Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak. He has said, wait another 2 or 3 weeks and everyone will forget the incident, that is, the attack, and the pressure on us will dissipate. Should and will the world forget this? Ray McGovern.
Well, I see this as a possible turning point. I can see where Ehud Barak would say those things, because that's what the Israeli government is used to. There was no investigation, much less a credible and transparent investigation, of what happened exactly 43 years ago on June 8, 1967, when the Israeli Air Force and Navy attacked and tried very much to sink the USS Liberty in international waters. 34 U.S. sailors were killed, 170 plus were badly wounded. I have just come from a ceremony in Arlington Cemetery where there is a mass grave of many of those 34 who were killed. Now, they were never held accountable for that. They did not conduct by themselves or with anyone else a transparent, much less a credible investigation. And the same thing happened in March of 2003, 3 days before the attack on Iraq by U.S. and British forces. That was no coincidence. When the Israeli bulldozer built in Peoria, Illinois, deliberately ran over Rachel Corrie and then backed over her to make sure that her back was broken, that was 3 days before the Israelis knew that the headlines of the newspapers would be dominated by the attack on Iraq. It was the immediate purpose was to serve notice on international volunteers who were trying to prevent housing demolitions in Gaza, serve notice on them that they were no longer immune, that they would suffer the same fate as their Israeli young volunteer compatriots. That was a lesson that they tried to give, and Rachel Corrie and her parents have been trying desperately ever since 2003 to get a fair, transparent, credible investigation to no purpose. So notion...
Ray McGovern, if you can tell us about the interception of that the radio communications that was intercepted. I'm sorry to jump in and interrupt you there, but expand on that for us, because we know you have some information on that.
You mean with respect to the USS Liberty?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is a very interesting story. The Israeli Air Force and Navy, the Navy had torpedoed the boat. It was listing badly. It looks like it was going down. Lifeboats were let down from the side of the ship, but they were machine gunned by the Israeli torpedo boats. And a young seaman named Terry Halbardier asked his commander, could he kind of squish across the napalm-filled deck and try to connect 2 coaxial cables so that he could get an SOS signal out? He said yes. Terry did that with some baling wire and some other stuff, and an SOS went out. And at a time when Israeli black-clad commandos were ready to descend onto the USS Liberty, just like you watched them descend upon the Marmara, the Israelis intercepted that message and said, uh-oh, looks like the 6th Fleet will probably send airplanes to do battle with us. We better get out of town. And they immediately dispersed. Now, what happened to that message was the 6th Fleet received it. The commander of the Saratoga aircraft carrier sent 2 planes immediately to do battle with whoever was attacking a U.S. ship. And it was called back by President Lyndon Johnson, who said, we don't want to cause any problems for our friends in Israel. That's how bad it was, and to this day, 99.9% of the Americans know nothing about the 34 seamen killed on the Liberty and the 170 wounded, because our Zionist media have kept that out of the public domain.
Okay, let me go on that statement you said, which is a turning point. Many are saying it's a turning point on many fronts. Kamal Hawash, Israel's attack on the flotilla has prompted doubts over Israel's value as a U.S. ally. How valid are these doubts, and is it a turning point in their relationship?
I believe that it is a turning point, but we will have to wait and see. Last year, I think people thought Gaza, the war on Gaza, was a turning point. The images of the phosphorus bombs being dropped on Gaza, the killing of 30 people from one family, the killing of 1,400 Palestinians in Gaza, I think people thought would be a turning point. I think the difference this time is this was very much in your face by Israel. In international waters, ships carrying humanitarian relief, and attacking them is a war crime under the Geneva Convention. There's no doubt about that.